Who would love to give us the answer? All right, Joel. What do we mean when we say assimilates? Yes, Joe? Okay, so the assimilates are the products of digestion, okay? The things, the food nutrients that are going to be absorbed by your body, okay? So when we're looking at transport in plants, we're looking at even the transportation of those materials that have been made, right? Which have been made during photosynthesis or that have been absorbed, or all those materials that are going to become part of that plant can be transported in various areas, okay? Those are the assimilates we're talking about. Yes, Joe, any other suggestion?
Yes, teacher. Assimilates are major products of photosynthesis, like glucose, proteins, and of course, lipids made by plants. Those are the assimilates that,
yes,
that of course will be
100%.
assimilated by the.
Yes. Yes, those are the assimilates, the products of photosynthesis or any material in the plant that is going to become part of the plant later, okay? Even in your bodies, you have assimilates. Those are the materials after digestion. Those materials become part of you. For example, the proteins can go make enzymes. They can make other stuff too. Glucose can be used for energy and things like that. So those assimilates, we term them like that because of what they become after, for example, in plants after photosynthesis, then in animals after digestion. So I was looking at some of the things you'll expect, and I said the uptake of ions by active transport will be key here. Description of the entry of water into plant roots in terms of water potential. Relate the structure of the xylem vessel to their functions in transport and support. Make drawings from prepared slides of xylem vessels, things like that. Outline the scent. Scent means ascending or uptake, okay, of water in plants, including the role of root pressure, capillarity, cohesion, adhesion, transpiration pool, and the role of stomata in transpiration. This was partly mentioned by Joe. And then we shall investigate the impact of environmental factors, including light and air movements on the rate of transpiration, the rate of structure of sieve tubes and companion cells and their function. Make drawings of sieve tubes, companion cells, and the other one will not look at it. Then the other one I can see here, pictures in an electron microscope to see what a phloem looks like in xylem vessel or trachate. And then we shall discuss mass flow, translocation, and things like that. Okay. So our first question, what materials are transported in plants? What materials are transported in plants? So I'll be asking questions as well as explaining some of these things for the people who might be struggling. Then we shall get into a session where we only ask questions. So your answers will be key during that time. For now, let's just go through this document as I ask you a couple of questions. So what materials are transported in plants? What type of materials are we looking at here? Who knows? We're looking at transporting plants, but what are we transporting?
Water.
Yes, Patricia?
Water. ions and the food material.
Water, ions, and food materials. Okay, good. Watum Ambrose says water, ions, mineral salts. That is very correct. And Daphne says water and mineral salts. That is also correct. Good job. So yeah, those are some of the things that we'll be looking at that are transported by plants. Now, there are others, including oxygen, carbon dioxide, organic nutrients, and then the inorganic ions and water that you have mentioned. Okay, those are some of the things that plants transport. Diana also said water and mineral salts. Okay. Joel Opio, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Yes, Joel, do you have a question? Joel Opio. Okay, probably forgot his hand up. He's not talking. So the other thing we can look at is the water transport, how water is transported from the soil into the root hair. Okay. That is one thing that you have to know also in this, from this document. Also uptake of ions into the root hairs are key. So I want you to remember that, because I'll have a question for you on that. Here is a picture of a root hair, okay? A young root showing its root hairs. This is how they expand all over into the soil. So it's a good picture to look at, and it will help us answer a couple of questions. Okay, there is a food for thought here. I've highlighted it. Explain why plants do not need a transport system to distribute oxygen and carbon dioxide. We see that animals have a special system, a special transport system that involves the heart, the blood vessels, and things like that to transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. But for plants, they don't need that type of system, the circulatory system. Who would love to explain to us why? Why is it so? You can raise up your hand or you can unmute and speak. Yes, David? Anyone who would love to try? Why do plants, don't they need a transport system like that in animals? Okay, Ambrose says they are required in little amounts. That's good, Ambrose. What else? Anyone? Okay, so the explanation to this is very simple. You see, the product of photosynthesis is what? What is the product of photosynthesis?
Carbohydrate.
What is a waste product? Which one is that?
The waste.
Who knows? Melissa?
Is oxygen.
Oxygen, that is correct. So the oxygen that is produced as a waste product during photosynthesis is again utilized by the same cells in the plant for respiration. And what is the product for respiration?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, correct. So the carbon dioxide also that is produced during respiration is again utilized during the process of photosynthesis. Now, this only means that plants won't need a lot of these two materials since some of their internal processes produce the two materials already, okay? Therefore, this is why they don't need the whole system to transport these materials because they are needed in very, very small quantities from the environment. They already make them internally in their structures, okay? So that's the easiest explanation to this. This is a very, very important question to remember. Very key in understanding transport in plants, okay? I also have a picture here that shows how water moves from the roots to the leaves, okay? The first thing we have to remember is transpiration. What is a transpiration? What is transpiration? I was going to say transpiration pool. What is transpiration? You can answer that for us. Yes, Maria.
Transpiration is a process of water loss in form of water vapor to the atmosphere.
Process by which big plants make the atmosphere through vapor.
Okay, good job. That is correct. So when water is lost from the leaves of a plant in form of water vapor, which we're seeing right here, that causes a lack of water from down here in the roots, okay? That causes a deprivation of water, meaning that the plant roots will need to take in water since a vacuum has been created, right? So the plant roots take in water, and then this water gets back into the leaves. Once again, it is lost through transpiration. That also creates a vacuum. And again, the roots absorb more water, and the process is continuous like that. That's how plants get to absorb water from the ground. Now, there are a couple of theories we shall look at to see how all this happens. But essentially, that is how water moves from the ground into the leaves. Yes, Maggie, you have a question or you're raising your hand?
Good afternoon, teacher.
Good afternoon.
Teacher, I was asking that the process of absorbing water from the ground, does it need energy?
Okay, that's a very good question. The process of absorbing water from the ground, does it need energy? Who would love to answer that for us? Does the process of absorbing water from the ground need energy? What she means is right here in the roots. Let me try to highlight that. Right here in the roots, okay? When water is entering, the uptake of water, does it require energy or no energy? Who knows?
I think it requires no energy
Explain.
because that's by process of osmosis, and osmosis requires no energy.
Okay, very good. That's good. Any other suggestion? Yes, Joel?
Teacher, I think that process doesn't require anything because this is what we sometimes call transpiration pool. So as water is lost from the mesophyll cells of the leaf into the airspace, that creates a suction force which continuously pull the water up. So in doing so, I don't think there is being consumed or utilized there. Yes.
Okay, very good. Good answer. There was someone else who had their hand up. Let me see. Saku Jim, you had your hand up. Could you say something about this?
Thank you. That process does not need energy because it is by osmosis. The movement of the water molecules is just across the diffusion gradient, concentration gradient of water molecules.
Okay, very good. Yeah, you're all very, very correct. Okay, none of you is wrong. This process does not require energy. Okay, this process occurs by the process the process of osmosis, like Joel mentioned. This osmosis, I think it was someone else, but this osmosis occurs in such a way that when you look at in here in the roots and the root hairs, there are more ions. Okay, there are more ions than the surrounding, right? And we know that by osmosis, water moves from the region of high water concentration to the region of low water concentration. There is more water here in the soil than the water in the root hairs, okay? Meaning water will move freely without need of energy into the roots. That's what happened. So whoever asked this question, I hope you get it now. I don't remember the name. Was it Maria or someone else? Who asked the question? Or Daphne, I'm not sure.
Okay, it was Maggie. Thank you.
Maggie, yes. It was Maggie. Did you get it?
Yes, teacher. Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, your class members did a good job of explaining that. Awesome. So that's how water gets into the roots and into the leaves via our root hairs. So that picture helped us to explain that. Now let's jump into. Did you have a question? I had someone say something. If you have a question, you raise up your hand, and then we can always answer it.
In the chat.
Okay, let's check in the chat. All right, Bam here gave us an answer of no, water moves from the soil into the root hairs by osmosis, which does not require energy expenditure. Very correct, Bam. Teacher, I have a question. Yeah, you just said you have a question, but I don't see the question. So please unmute and ask your question. Joel, I'm waiting for your question. Okay, here it is. Explain the absence of transport pigments in plants. Okay, the absence of transport pigments. What transport pigments? Joel, could you explain your question a little bit more? Oh, like hemoglobin. Okay, good job. That's a very good question, Joel. Who would love to explain to us why is it that plants do not need things like hemoglobin? Would like to explain that to us? Yes? You can raise up your hand or you can type in the chat box. Why is it that plants do not need hemoglobin? Who would love to try? Just try. Let me see. I think same explanation as to why plants don't need transport system. Okay, Tony, well done. Any other? Yes, Saku.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank that previous person for giving that comment. Plants, basically, they do not have a high metabolic activity like us animals because of the fact that they do not locomote. So as such, they do not need the hemoglobin like us humans, because we have a very high metabolic activity, and therefore we have a lot of energy requirements which can only be got by respiration, which needs the oxygen. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well done, Saku. That is a perfect explanation right there, okay? When you look at plants versus animals, we see that animals really have high energy requirements. For example, Saku has mentioned a very nice example that plants do not locomote. Even though they move, they do not locomote. They don't need to get from one place to another, okay? And such things take a lot of energy, and we see animals do that, right? So plants wouldn't need transportation pigments or chemicals to transport oxygen because they don't need that high amount of oxygen for high energy production, because they don't even need the energy, all right? But the animals do. They need a high supply of energy, therefore they would need a transportation pigment to ensure that that energy is produced all over the body of that particular animal. In plants, it's not the case, all right? So does that make sense for you, Joel? Joel, does that explanation satisfy your need? Okay, good job. Thank you for the nice explanation. I've craved for a month now. All right, good job. I'm glad you get it now. Yes, Daphne, you have a question?
Yeah, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. I read somewhere that the root nodules, they have a hemoglobin for transporting oxygen needed by the bacteria. Is it true?
Please pardon your question.
Okay, I read somewhere the root nodules, they have a hemoglobin for transporting oxygen needed by the bacteria. Is it true?
So there are certain plants that do have hemoglobin, and these days there's a couple of research that is being made into that, ascertaining even the type of hemoglobin they have and what is it for. The most accepted theory right now is about the symbiotic nature of such plants, where they exist with a different animal or a different living organism together to ensure that that mutualism is sustained. Okay, so there is that theory that is now widely accepted, why some plants do possess hemoglobin. Okay, so yeah, there are some that do. Okay, any other questions? All right, so we're looking at this root here and trying to see what we were talking about, some of the characteristics of the root hair and why it is able to absorb water and mineral ions. So in most cases, we see that water enters the root hair by diffusion down the water potential gradient. And one of the reasons for that is because it has a thin, permeable cellulose wall, but also it's a partially permeable cell membrane, which is located right there, as we can see. So these two things that I've highlighted are very, very key in ensuring that plant roots can absorb this water. Okay. What causes the lowering of the water potential this side of the root hair is because of a more concentrated cytoplasm. Okay, more concentrated cytoplasm and vacuum. Those two things contribute to the lowering of the water potential this side. This ensures that water is going to move from the soil upwards that side. Okay, and that's the root hair. We have a couple of pathways we can look at how water gets its way into the xylem from the root hair. Let me see if I can highlight that a little bit. So we have this picture right here. This picture here. It shows one of the pathways and how water moves from the root hair, which is right here. That's our root hair, to our xylem, which is right here. Now, here we see that once the water gets itself through the root hair, it can take up a couple of pathways. The blue arrows here are showing us that the water moves from each vacuum, one vacuum to another. Okay, and then it gets by the pericycle into our xylem. Who can tell us what type of pathway is this from vacuum to vacuum? Who knows this type of pathway? How do we term it? What is the term we use for that type of pathway where the water is moving from vacuum to vacuum? All right, Lillian says vacuolar. That is very, very correct, Lillian. That is the vacuolar pathway. Another question, what if the water was moving from this one cell wall to another? Which pathway is that when water is moving from one cell wall to another? Let's see. Hamza says apoplast, Maria says apoplast, Tony apoplast, Daphne apoplast, Sam apoplast. That is 100% correct. That is the apoplast. And then what else? Which other pathway that utilizes the cytoplasm from one cytoplasm of each cell to another? How do we call that that pathway? Cytoplasm to cytoplasm. All right, Faith says simplest, praise, simplest, Sam, simplest, simplest. Yes, that is the simplest pathway, okay? So those are the three pathways mainly on how water gets itself into the xylem, okay? In this picture, you can use this picture to represent any of the pathways. Just have to show the arrows from each pathway, okay? And the water going through the epidermis, through the endodermis, through the pericycle, and then into the xylem, okay? That is it. Those are some of the pathways. Let's delete this. All right. So now here we have a picture of a transverse section through a root, okay? Transverse section through a young root. This picture is very, 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 very examined, okay? I always try to examine this kind of picture. So you have to pay attention to it, and you have to know to differentiate between the transverse section through a root and then a stem. Sometimes you can easily confuse them. So here we have a root hair. The moment you see a root hair, you just know you're dealing with a root. That is a trick that you should always use. And then other parts like the cortex, the epidermis, the pericycle, the endodermis, the phloem, and the xylem. The other thing I want you to note here is the location of the phloem and the xylem. Here, the phloem is outside the xylem. Okay. Is there someone with a question? Sebi, do you have a question? Okay. No one has a question. Let's continue. I was saying the other thing you have to note is the location of the xylem and the phloem on this picture here. Okay. Very, very, very important. I have a question here for us to answer. An applicable question is right here. Summarize the ways in which a root hair cell is adapted for its functions. Summarize the ways in which a root hair cell is adapted to its functions. What are those ways? What are those ways?
It is still increase in the surface area. There are numerous.
Yes, please. I couldn't hear you well.
The root hair is still. There are numerous increase in the surface area.
Okay, I had something to do with thinness and all that, probably. Yes, Maria?
The root hairs are slender and flexible for easy penetration between the soil particles so as to absorb water and the mineral salts.
Okay, very good. That's 100% correct. These root hairs are thin, flexible, and pointed at the end just to make sure that they penetrate through the soil particles to get into those areas where the nutrients and water is. That is correct, Maria. Good job. Another one. Any other? We talked about the structure of their cell wall and cell membrane. Who remembers that? The cell wall and the cell membrane of the root hair. We just mentioned that. Who remembers anything to do with that? Does anyone remember? The structure of the cell wall and the cell membrane of a root hair. There's something special about those two structures. Does anyone remember?
The partial permeability.
Yes, that is very, very correct. The cell membrane is partially permeable. The cell wall is very thin. We've talked about that, and it's also permeable. Okay, that is very, very important to remember. For those who have forgotten, let me scroll back up a little bit here, and you see it is right there. Thin permeable cellulose cell wall and a partially permeable cell membrane. Okay. Someone has a question. All right. What two Mambros, you mentioned that, which is correct. Tony Wamala, that is also correct in the chat box. Someone had a question, the function of, the importance of that stem, the stem. Praise Marvin is asking a question. What is the function of the stem? Look at the transverse section of a young root. What is the function of the stem? You see, a stem is a combination of all these, like the part. So what is the function of that stem? Sometimes when you cut down a root, you even observe it. Yes, please. Someone had something to say. Is it Arenito Isaac?
Excuse me.
Yeah. Yes, please. We can't hear you at night.
Yes,
Why?
there are some adaptations, like 5 of them that I have them summarized. I don't know if I should read them to the rest such that they can make use of them.
All right, go ahead.
One, they have a water potential lower than that of the soil solution, which facilitate a net osmotic flow of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think it is network. I'm saying.
Yes, we have had that.
No, we can hear you.
I think let
yeah.
me put on my camera, then the back. I put the back, then I show where they are summarized, such that everyone is able to see and maybe write down if possible.
No, you can speak them. Okay. It's fine. You don't have to put on your camera because the network will get worse. Just speak them. Yes, Arinaitu. You can just speak them because the network is disturbing you, and it will just get worse if you put on your camera.
Yeah.
Okay, he's probably off, I'm not sure. But he mentioned something important as far as their water potential is concerned. They have a low one compared to the surrounding soils. So that ensures that water moves across the gradient into the root hairs, which is correct. Someone was asking about the function of the stem. Can someone give us the importance of the stem? All right, Saku says the cell is made up of the xylem, phloem, and the pericycle. Major function, pathway through water, amino salts, and manufactured food, and transported. I know your network is disturbing. You can type them in the chat box, and then we shall read them if the network is still disturbing you. Any other person who has a function of the stem? Okay.
It is disturbing, but I think now people can hear me. I read out.
Yeah, you can read out, then you can continue.
All right. I'm going to be typing. Yes, I'm going to be typing them as we are going on.
Are you reading out, or you want us to continue, then you'll read them later?
Teacher, he has said that he's going to be typing them as we continue. So let's continue.
Oh,
he's typing them.
Yeah, he's going to type them in the chat as we are.
All right. I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Good job. All right. Thank you for letting me know. His network was jumping. I couldn't hear him. All right. Good job. Yes. Type them in as we go. Thank you very much. So the cell. Someone mentioned an answer here about what it is composed. I think that was Saku. Okay. And mentioned about what is found there, like the phloem and the xylem, and the function is being able to transport these materials like mineral salts, water, and food. Tony says the same thing. You are all correct, but mainly the cell makes this core here. We call it a core because it's comprised of those parts you've mentioned.
Okay, let me read them very fast. Let me pass through them very fast. I see some of them have been just mentioned, but just
of the cell. I think the cell provides due to turgidity when it takes in water.
Taking a plus 2. You should write your name so that I can know your name. You mentioned something important about turgidity.
Yeah.
Could you pardon it?
I think the cell
It was taken up.
the cell provides support to the plant due to turgidity when it takes in water.
Yes, 100% correct. The main function of the cell is what taking up 2 plus as say. Support, okay? Support. It is all about support. This core is mainly for supporting the plant in order to withstand the tension forces, okay, and compression forces that the roots encounter, all right? That is the function of this core, right? Support is the key word here. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's it. That's the function of the stem. Good job. That's the main one. So the adaptations of root hair cells, we have mentioned a few, and Arinaitre has agreed that he has more that he will type in the chat box later, which is great. You can always utilize more. And if you have any other, also any one of you, just put them in there. Just put them in the chat box, and we shall look at them. I'll make sure I read them for the rest. Okay. All right. So down here, we just have what exactly I've been explaining, like the pathway, the apoplast pathway. You can see it here. Those we have explained. And then we have the science of the plasmodesmata in the simplest pathway. Okay, I'll have a question about that later that you have to answer. But this picture also here can show us what I was talking about, especially on this particular pathway. While looking at this picture, let me highlight it for everyone. This picture here, what do you think this pathway is? Just look at the blue arrows. For someone who has been paying attention, this will be easy for you. Ankunda, you're correct about the root hair cells. They have a large surface area that speeds up osmosis. Correct. What pathway is this that I've highlighted? Someone says.
Okay.
What pathway is this? Who would love to give us the answer? Someone said something. Just look at the blue arrows. All right, Faith says apoplast, Tony apoplast, Becky apoplast, Daphne apoplast. Yes, 100% correct. This is the apoplast. We can see that the blue arrows, okay, they are in the cell wall, right? So the water is passing through the cell wall, okay, from cell to cell, through the cell wall, to the particular xylem vessel trachea that is near there. So that is a good picture to show us what the apoplast pathway entails. So yeah. Okay, Adenaito is saying, I suggest that we make a group on WhatsApp, Telegram, where we can summarize that we have discussed after the lesson. I'll make sure, I don't know if we can have your numbers and create this, because some of you said you didn't even receive this document. So probably if you submitted your numbers or emails in the chat box, I would be able to send this document. This work to you so that you can refer to it later once we are done. Okay. We have a few minutes to get into our next hour where we shall have only questions, but I want us to go through the summary very quickly, and then we can continue. All right, I have another pathway here. This nice picture shows you a different pathway. In fact, there are two pathways in this particular picture. Can someone tell us which ones are these here? This particular picture here. Just look at the blue arrows where they're pointing at. Who knows?
I think that pathway and simplest pathway, because in virtual pathway, water moves across cells.
Okay, good job. Okay. The simplest, we're seeing that water is moving through the cytoplasm, from one cytoplasm to another. Okay, which is good. In case the arrows were pointing from one vacuum to another vacuum, that would be another pathway, okay, which we call the vacuolar that you mentioned. Okay, so simplest, vacuolar, sometimes they work interchangeably to make sure that the water gets to where it's gonna get. Okay. Remember, all these are theorized on how water moves in from the root hair cells to the xylem vessel and tracheids. Okay. Any questions so far? Please, if you have a question, you can always type it in the chat box. One question here: how water moves? How does water move across the root? Yeah, apoplast pathway, simplest pathway. We have explained this one. Now everyone knows this one. Okay. One thing that is examinable that I want you to know about is the Casparian strip. Who can describe for us the Casparian strip, or what do you know about the Casparian strip? Who knows?
I think, according to me, sir, the Casparian strip is just the waterproof substance that is found inside the that is found that is found together with the pericycle. It is a waterproof substance that does not allow water to move from to move from one side of the cell.
Hey, yes, good job. Another one. Thank you very much. That's a good submission right there. Another one. What do you know about the Casparian strip?
I will dig a will of die. We never have it. So there you go.
Corky, Amza says, corky and impermeable structure in the epidermis. Daphne says, oh, okay, she had a question. We shall answer that question later. So yeah, the Casparian strip is just that particular layer in the dermis where it is made up of a polysaccharide that is water hating or hydrophobic polysaccharide, which we call suberin. And this sort of prevents water to pass through it, okay? But where it is, there are also perforations, especially for the apoplast pathway, okay? I mean, especially for the simplest pathway, but not for the apoplast pathway, okay? So it is even where in that place where the apoplast turns into the simplest, okay? So it's made up of a polysaccharide, which is very hydrophobic, doesn't allow water to pass through it. And when the water encounters this, it changes pathways, okay? That is something I wanted you to pick up from here. Those are hands posted in the cell wall, okay? Good job. All right, Daphne had a question. explanation for the simplest pathway. Who can describe the simplest pathway? Describe the simplest pathway. Who can describe for us the simplest pathway?
Simplest pathway.
Who would love to explain to us the simplest pathway? Melissa, you want to try? Yes, Melissa. Or someone else would love to try? Simplest. Okay, so the simplest pathway, here we have water, which enters into the cytoplasm across the permeable plasma membrane, right? Now, from one cytoplasm, it goes to another through the plasmodesmata, right? So the simplest pathway is all about the cytoplasm, from one cytoplasm of one cell to another through the plasmodesmata. And then for the vacuolar pathway, it is all about the vacuoles, okay? From one vacuole to another, from one vacuole of one cell to another. So those were the two concerns about these particular pathways. The tonoplast, we said, and I mean the apoplast, we said it is for the cell wall. Yes, so Sam, you're very, very correct. From one cytoplasm to another. Yes, Maggie, your hand is up.
Chair, question.
Yes, please.
Chair, that means that actually only occurs in one cell, doesn't occur between two cells.
Okay, why would you think so? Why would you think it occurs in only one cell?
Sure, because if we are going to have vacuoles in one cell, there the pathway can be easily conducted. But if it's going to be across different cells, like how is it going to occur? What's going to be the means of transport from one vacuole to another in a different cell?
Yes, very, very good question. Excellent question. Who would love to explain this? Yes, Brian, your hand is raised.
I think it moves the process of osmosis.
Okay, osmosis. Good answer. Which other explanation can we give for this? Who else would love to explain Maggie's question?
Transpiration pool.
Yes, please. So, here, Maggie is right to be concerned about this, that if the vacuum is not, one vacuum of one cell is not connected to the other vacuum, how will the water move from one vacuum to another? In the beginning, I told you these are theories explaining how water moves, okay? They are acceptable theories. Now, here is the theory of, for the vacuolar. Water enters from one vacuum to another, but the movement that this water undergoes is from, so for example, let me get here and highlight for you. So once the water gets into the root hair cell, it immediately goes into the vacuum because of the difference in the water potential, not going through the cytoplasm, right? So this pathway is utilizing the vacuum. It's not going to go through the cytoplasm. It goes through the vacuum. Now, from one vacuum to another, of course, it's going to utilize the cytoplasm and the plasmodesmata to get into the next vacuum. The reason for this is because the vacuum is always having more concentration than the surrounding or the cytoplasm. Okay, so the rationale behind this theory is that water will easily be attracted into the vacuum since it has a higher solute concentration than the surrounding. And remember, this is a passive process. It is not active. It does not require energy. So that is the rationale behind that. Since the vacuums are always more concentrated, water will always be attracted into the vacuum rather than going through the cytoplasm straight to the next cell. In this pathway, they go from one vacuum to another, utilizing, just like we have said, the cytoplasm and the plasmodesmata. Does that make sense, Maggie?
Yes, teacher. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So that's it with these pathways. These pathways are very, very important for you to understand and differentiate. So please, if you have any other questions about them, let me know. They're very, very, very important. Okay. All right. Faith, you have a question?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, please.
About the vacuola, isn't the tonoplast also taking part when it comes to the movement of water from one cell to another?
Good question. That's a good question, Faith. Who knows what the tonoplast is? Who would love to tell us what the tonoplast is? Because it's important for us to know what the tonoplast is before we answer this question. Let me see if someone is raising their hand. Maria, you have an answer? Tonoplast, what is it?
Excuse me, sir, like what's the question?
What is the tonoplast? What part of the plant is called the tonoplast? Melissa, you have an answer?
It's the vacuum membrane.
Yes, 100% correct. The vacuum membrane, okay? So the membrane that surrounds this vacuum, we call it the tonoplast, okay? It's like the membrane of the vacuum. I'm trying to highlight it here. That is the tonoplast right there, okay? So now the question is it involved in the vacuolar pathway? Obviously, it is involved because it is the membrane that surrounds the vacuum. Okay, so I hope, Maggie, that answers your question. Okay, good job. Good job, everyone. Well done. Maria, you have a question also?
Yeah, sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm seeing some apoplast pathway the most appropriate one for the plants. Why is it so?
The apoplast is the most what?
Appropriate pathway for the plants. Why is it so?
That's a very, very good question. That was probably one of the questions I was meant to ask you. Why is the apoplast the most accepted theory for these pathways? Why is the apoplast the most acceptable one for these pathways? Who would love to answer that? Why is it the most appropriate? The apoplast pathway. I'll give you a hint. Here you have to think about what would prevent this water from moving from one cell to another. What distractions could the water meet on the way for the other pathways, which won't be in the apoplast one? That is the hint. Anyone? What are some of the things that water will meet on the way while using the vacuolar and the simplest? Right. Lillian says in part. What is that? Okay. Who knows why the apoplast is the best? Submarine, Kitten say submarine, maybe. Impermeable cell wall. Well, water passes through it though. So, okay. So the reasoning behind is that when you look at the simplest and the vacuolar, they are all using, at least at a certain point, the cytoplasm. And what do we find in the cytoplasm? We find other organelles. If you have drawn in the plant cell, you know that we have a ton of organelles in the cytoplasm here. First of all, we have a huge vacuole, which is then surrounded by very many organelles like the mitochondria, like the endoplasmic reticulum, like the Golgi body, like the ribosomes, and many others. So water faces a lot of resistance while using the other two. A lot of resistance. But when you look at the apoplast, there are no organelles in the cell wall. Okay, so there's less resistance. The only resistance we will find, we talked about it in the on the Casparian strip, and we know how the apoplast pathway overcomes that now. Okay, so that is the explanation. Hopefully it makes sense. Okay. I wanted us to look at also the structure of the xylem. Okay, xylem vessel or vessel element. What we see here is that the xylem is lignified. Okay, they have lignified cell thickenings, and they are in very many types. We have the spiral ones, the annular, the reticular, these, the lignifications, and then the pitted lignifications. Okay, so once you're asked to draw the structure of the xylem, keep that in mind. Okay, how the thickenings are formed. These are the type of thickenings in the xylem vessel element. The other parts that we can see here is the lumen, the pits. Okay, if it is pitted, we always have the pits like this. And then the remains of the end walls of the adjacent xylem element, okay, because these are connected from one xylem element to another. So these are like the endings, and then the vessel element, right? So those are some of the parts of the xylem. What I want you to pick here are the lignifications and probably the lumen and the pits. That's the most important part on this picture. Okay. Someone is asking how the Casparian strip is overcome. We explained that one. Someone to type the explanation in the chat for Sam. Sam is asking that question. Please, someone type the explanation that we said. Under the electron microscope, you can see the pits. Okay, so this is a picture showing the pits that we're talking about and the arrangement of the lignified walls. So this is like a pit right here, okay? And then this thing here is sort of where one vessel ends and all that. So this is on a very, very high magnification. This is why you can see as if there are huge holes. Someone would ask, does the water not, pass through and then get to the other parts of the plant? Some of it does, but we shall also see that water moves in one stream in the xylem due to the transpiration pool. Okay. I want to go through this quicker, the summary, and then go to some of the questions that I wanted us to answer before we finish this seminar. I have another question. What is mass flow? Let's define mass flow here. Okay, mass flow. How would you describe mass flow? Would love to describe for us mass flow. Who knows? Mass flow. Yes, Daphne?
Okay, mass flow is the movement of large quantities of water and solids in the same direction. I
Yes,
think
100% correct. Good job. Good job, Daphne. You're 100% correct. I can't add anything to that, but what I would add is an analogy. Just like the way you take soda using a straw from a bottle, that is also mass flow. Okay. The soda is moving upwards. Okay. The contents, whatever contents you have in that bottle, are moving upwards in one stream into your mouth. That is also mass flow. So now just change that and relate to plants. Okay. I don't know why I got disconnected, but sorry for that. So we're talking about the parenchyma cells and how we should think about strength when we see parenchyma cells. They surround the vascular bundles. Okay. Yeah, I got disconnected a little bit, but hopefully you can hear me now. Now, what really causes the mass flow or the movement of water molecules in one strip are some of these forces. We have cohesion, adhesion, and capillarity. Those forces are key in making sure that water moves in one stream in the xylem. Okay. Who can define for us cohesion, and then who can define for us adhesion, and then capillarity? Just take up one and define it. Cohesion, adhesion, and capillarity. Who'd love to define any of those? Just pick up one and define it. Anyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Capillarity is the upward movement of water through a narrow strip. A narrow tube.
Very cool, very good. Capillarity movement of a liquid through a narrow strip or a narrow tube. Good job. Another one would love to define cohesion or adhesion.
Cohesion gives the forces in between, forces of attraction in between molecules of the same type.
Okay. Molecules of the same type for cohesion and molecules of different type for adhesion. Very good. Now, Please, I want you to do something for me right now as we move forward. Type your number, your phone number in the chat box so that I can send you this work when we are done. So type your number in the chat box right now. Okay, make sure you all type your numbers. Type your number in the chat box as we continue. Okay, Daphne, well done. I've seen your number. Everyone else follow Daphne's lead. Just type your number here in the chat box. Okay, Becky, I see your number too. Saku, good job. Everyone follow that lead. Meanwhile, I have a question for us here. I have highlighted it. Okay. Who would love to answer this question for us? It says, explain how each of these features adopts the xylem vessels for their function of transporting water from roots to leaves. The first one, total lack of cell contents. How does this facilitate the movement of water in the xylem? How does this adopt the xylem vessels for their function of transporting water from roots to leaves? First one is total lack of cell contents. How does that facilitate the function of the xylem vessel?
I think it creates space for more packing of water during the transportation.
Okay, very good. More water is transported since there is no cell contents. Another one, which other reason is there for this particular factor?
It enables a continuous movement of water up the leaves.
Yes, enables the continuous movement of water up the leaves without resistance. That's what was missing, without resistance. So good job. Another one, no end walls in individual xylem elements. No end walls in the individual xylem elements. How does that facilitate the function of the xylem? There are no end walls. So the xylem elements are connected end to end. No end walls. Why? How does that facilitate the function of the xylem?
Facilitate continuous flow of water within the xylem vessels.
Okay, very good. Continuous flow of water within the xylem vessels all the way to the leaves. Very good. The diameter between 0.01 millimeters and 0.2 millimeters. What does the diameter have to do with transportation of water in the xylem? Keton, you're also correct. Enables water to flow without backflow. Good job. Any other about the diameter? Anything about the diameter? Yes, Maggie.
I think it creates pressure because the water is circulated around.
Yes, increases the pressure, meaning the water will move higher without breaking. Good job. What about the lignified walls? Lignified walls, what do those have to do with the function of the xylem? Lignified walls. dead lignified walls.
They prevent water from flowing out.
Yes. We know that lignin is hydrophobic, so it is not going to allow water to be absorbed out of the xylem vessels, okay, which is good. Water is not going to diffuse out of the lumen of the xylem vessels as it moves upwards into the leaves, okay. Also, Keton said about diameter that faster movement of water due to short distance, okay, good job. Praise said more transportation of water. Good job. What about the pits? How do the pits help? How do the pits help? Okay, diffusion of sucrose. We are talking about the xylem keton. So make sure you know that we are concentrating on the xylem mineral salts and water only. Who knows how the pits help in the xylem vessels? Yes? Any?
I think pit is for transport of soil, sir.
Yes. Okay. So these pits also are very, very helpful in the transportation of water. Very, very helpful in such a way that they ensure that the water movement is continuous and upwards without backflow and things like that. All right, let us continue. Please make sure if you haven't typed in your name and your number, your number and your combination, please do. Okay, also the pits for strengthening of the vessel or the column of the water, things like that. The essence of the water or ascending of the water without interruption, that is also correct. Good job. All right, all done. Let's continue and see one more, two more important things I would love you to note. We have seen this structure before of the leaf, where we have the palisade, mesophyll, spongy mesophyll, and lower epidermis. What I want you to pick up here is the stoma. Okay, the stoma is key here because we're going to look at its opening and closure very, very soon. So the location of the stoma is on the lower epidermis for a reason. Who can give us that reason? Why are there more stomata on the lower epidermis than the upper epidermis? Why are there more stomata on the lower epidermis than the upper epidermis? Yes, Ronnie. Ronnie, you haven't said something. Say something. Ronnie? Okay, Ronnie is off probably. Who else would have to try? Faith? Why do we have more stomata on the lower epidermis?
To prevent excess loss of water during transpiration.
Yes, we don't want to lose more water, excess water, due to the process of transpiration. So the stomata are located on the lower epidermis for that reason. Even when transpiration occurs, we still have water left in the plant. If they were on the upper epidermis, once it shines or once the wind is high, all the water in the plant will be lost. But since they're on the lower epidermis, the plant gets to keep a lot of its water and only get rid of what it doesn't need. The other thing I want us to pick up here is what we call root pressure. Who can define for us root pressure? Root pressure is right here. Let me highlight it for us so you can see it. Right there, root pressure. Anyone? So when you look at the, yes, please go ahead.
First generated by the root of some plants, which pushes water, acid, mineral salt up to the xylem.
Thank you, Patricia. Good job. Yes, root pressure is the pressure generated by the roots to push up the contents from the roots to the leaves. This is generated by active transport of ions from the soil into the roots, which creates a difference in water potential. Hence, the roots get to absorb a lot of water, which causes a lot of pressure, which pushes the contents towards the leaves. This is accompanied by another process we call transpiration, which we defined at the beginning of this seminar. The transpiration causes what we call the transpiration stream. Okay, water is being lost as water is being absorbed from the soil. That is the transpiration stream. So those are some of the things I wanted you to pick up. On this picture, we see stomata and diffusion of gases in there. And then here we see the mechanism of opening and closure of stomata. This is very, very, very important. So here is step one. ATP powered proton pump actively transports hydrogen ions low hydrogen ions concentration and negative charge inside the cell cause potassium ion channels to open. So potassium ion channels open. That means potassium diffuses into the cell down the electron. Okay. Hydrogen out, potassium in. That's very key. Then the high concentration potassium inside the guard cell lowers the water potential. Okay, now there's low water potential in here. And once we have low water potential, then our favorite process in the world comes in, osmosis. Osmosis comes in, okay, meaning water moves into the guard cells. The entry of the water increases the volume of the guard cells, so they expand. The thin outer wall expands.
Greetings, everyone. Charles. Sorry, we have lost Teacher Solomon, but let's keep on for a moment as he's rejoining. I hope that is okay. Yes, Teacher Solomon is back, I can see. Teacher Solomon, please pick it up.
I don't know what happened to the network. Very sorry.
Sorry, we had lost you, but pick it up, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Charles. So the network is still disturbing a little bit, but we'll continue nevertheless. So I was just talking about the proton pump inside the guard cells, where we pump out hydrogen ions and then potassium ions in to cause the inflow of water, then the expansion of the inner and outer walls of the guard cells, causing the stomata to open. This is a very, very important process. It is highly examinable. So you have to understand this. Therefore, if you have any questions about this, please ask. Okay, this entire process here, the 5 steps. I've summarized them down by just telling you potassium in, hydrogen out, water in, then expansion. Done. Okay, that's how easily you can get it. But if you have any question, please make sure you can ask. Okay. Right, my network is still disturbing. I don't think you can hear me.
We can hear, so you can continue.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, so any questions? I'll be here waiting for questions. We are soon reaching to the end. Our seminar, I have just some objective questions and then structured questions that you'll answer on your own once you receive this document. Also remember to register your numbers and combinations so you can be able to receive materials from this seminar. So make sure you register your number, please. Okay. Those who haven't registered, make sure you do. Helen, I've explained to you this process. You can always revise it later. We have factors that affect transpiration. We have humidity. We have temperature. Okay. We have light intensity and stomatal aperture. All right. Who can explain to us how humidity affects the transpiration process? How does humidity affect the transpiration process? Put your number and your combination. We shall send you the WhatsApp group link. How does humidity affect transpiration? Who knows? Okay, Ketan says the higher the humidity, the lower the rate of transpiration. Yes. So humidity is a measure of how much water vapor is held in the air. In conditions of low humidity, that is when the air is dry, there is a steep water potential gradient between the leaf and the air. Transpiration rates, therefore, greater in low humidity than in high humidity. All right. That's how humidity affects transpiration. The steep water potential is very, very high between the air and the leaf. Therefore, transpiration increases with low humidity. Okay. All right. And then temperature, this one is very obvious. High temperature, high transpiration. Light intensity. Normally, light intensity won't have direct effect on the rate of transpiration during the daytime. However, many plants close their stomata at night when it is dark and then are unable to photosynthesize, and so do not need to use carbon dioxide from the air. Okay, that's how light intensity can easily affect transpiration. Another one is air movement. The higher the air movement, the higher the transpiration, because the water vapor is blown away from the leaf. I have a picture here to show that. Hopefully it is somewhere here. Yes, right here. So here we can see mostly, especially for the hairless plants on a windy day. Hairless plants on the windy day, you'll see that the water vapor around the leaf, okay, once the wind blows, the water vapor is blown away quickly. Okay. Then for the hairless leaf in still air, at least that is a little bit normal. Okay. And then for the ones that have hair on a windy day, you can see that the hairs help in trapping the water vapor and things like that. That's another thing we can pick up from here. Someone saying, I thought air affects transpiration. Yes, we have mentioned that air movement or wind affects transpiration. In this picture here, once you get the notes, you'll see, you read about this picture more to see how that occurs. Okay. All right, we have some experiments here. Then we can look at the flowworm. Let me rush quickly here and we answer some questions about the xylem.
Master, you didn't talk about stomato aperture.
Stomato aperture, once you get the notes, you can read about stomato aperture. I want us to go through, there's some questions about the xylem so that our lesson today or seminar today is purposeful with this bunch of questions. So the first question is here. The uptake of mineral ions from the soil into the root hair cells lowers the water potential of the cell. Water then enters the cell. Which of the following correctly identifies the process by which the ions and the water are taken up? A, we have active transport and active transport. Active transport of ions, then active transport of water. B, active transport of ions, osmosis of water. C, osmosis of ions, osmosis of water. D, osmosis of ions, active transport of water. Who can tell us the answer and why? We have looked at this. Can someone tell us the answer and the reason why? You can read the question on your own again and tell us the answer. Let me see. Keton, tell us why you said B. Tell us why. Or someone else would love to answer, please make sure you tell us why. Water moves to the root hairs by osmosis. That is correct. Watum Ambrose says B also. You can always tell us why. Tony says B. No one is saying why, giving us the reason why. Arinaito Isaac says, because ions move by transport and water moves by osmosis. Okay, yes, ions move by active transport. We have seen that when we talked about root pressure. Ions will always move by active transport, and then water is followed by osmosis due to the difference in the water potential between the soil and the roots. So very correct. Next question. Water moves across the root down a water potential gradient. Which of the following is responsible for producing the water potential gradient? What produces the water potential gradient amongst all these? It says water moves across the root down the water potential gradient. Which of the following is responsible for producing the water potential gradient? Yes, please. An answer and why. Keton says C, transpiration pool. Okay, why? Why? Who can tell us why? Why transpiration pool? Yes, please. Anyone who have looked at this? Would love to try? Saku, would you like to try?
I think when water is lost to the atmosphere through transpiration, then it creates, then the water travels, creating the water potential gradient.
Okay, very good. Water is lost by the by transpiration. That creates what we call the transpiration pool, which results into a water potential gradient. That's good. Okay. The diagram below shows a cross-section of the root. Which of the following correctly identifies the structure that controls the amount of mineral ions taken into the xylem by the root? A, part I, B, part Roman numeral 2, C, part Roman numeral 3, D, part Roman numeral 4. Which one? Which part controls the amounts of mineral ions taken into the xylem of the root? Keton says A, why? Please give us a reason. Give us a reason. Joel, give us a reason. Why part A?
Part A is the root air, which is partially permeable and it is connected down to the soils that have the mineral soil. So through the active transport, it allows in the mineral soil.
Okay, very good. That's a good answer. I don't know who that was. I didn't check. Who was that?
It was Patricia.
Patricia, well done. So, yes, that's a good explanation. The location of the root hairs and them being permeable and connected to the inner parts of the cell, all that contributes to their ability to take in mineral ions by active transport. We also see that inside the root hair, we have a lot of mitochondria that helps in creating that energy required for the active transport of those mineral ions. Okay, very good. Adenitro, you're also correct. Awesome. Well done. We're going to stop at number 5. So this is our second last question. I don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of information. So 2 hours are enough. So our second last question says, which feature of the xylem vessels allows them to transport water with little resistance? We have looked at this one before. Who would love to answer? Part A says narrow lumen. Part B, lignified walls. Part C, pits. Part D, lack of cell contents. What is the answer and why? Onyango says D. Tell us the reason why. Helen, tell us the reason why. Why D? Why lack of cell contents? Kedon says A. Joel A. Tell us the reasons why. I also want to remind you, if you haven't written down your number in the chat box, please do write down your number. Faye says D, because the lack of contents allows free space for maximum water movement or transportation. Okay, good. So yeah, the answer here is actually D, and we talked about it. Okay, lack of cell contents and resistance go together. Okay, when you have no cell contents, you'll have less resistance for water movement. The lumen, we said for it, it ensures that the water that is being transported has high pressure and it is in one stream. Okay, and we talked about the lignified walls and the pits too, but specifically for the lack of cell contents, we talked about the resistance. Okay, if xylem vessels had things like the vacuole, like the plasmic reticulum, like the nucleus, like all those things that you know, there will be a lot of resistance. Okay, so that's the reasoning behind it. So the correct answer is D, Faith, you're correct. Good job. Please write your numbers and combinations. Lastly, we have a picture here. It says the photograph below shows a longitudinal section through a tissue of the plant stem. Which of the following correctly identifies the structure labeled W and the tissue in which it is found? We looked at some of these, the types of lignification. So I've given you a hint already. So W, is it found? A, structure W is a xylem vessel and it is a xylem tissue. B, xylem vessel, phloem tissue. C, sieve tube, xylem vessel, xylem tissue. D, sieve tube, phloem tissue. Of all those, which one is the answer for number 5? Who can tell us the answer for number 5? Yes, Keton? Keton, you can tell us what is the answer? Keton says the answer is C. C is sieve tube and xylem. Okay, good try. Who else would love to try? Who else? Okay, so we saw this picture where we're talking about lignification, the types of lignification. Okay, this is a xylem vessel lignified in such a way. Okay, this is, I think, spiral, if I'm not mistaken. Spiral lignification, right? So it's not a sieve tube, it is a xylem vessel just lignified. And the tissue is xylem. If you go back up here, let me see if I can get it quickly before I say goodbye to you, because that was our last question. Let me just remind you that a little bit right here. Okay, does this look familiar? These are the types of lignification where we saw the thickenings and lignification of the xylem vessels. Okay, and we even looked at this picture here, the electron microscope showing us these walls, how they are lignified. So this looks exactly similar to that picture in the question. So please go through these notes. Those who are writing down numbers, you receive these notes. Answer all the questions. Feel free to ask questions. And remember to subscribe to these services so that you can get to learn on a daily these particular things. Okay, so please make sure you subscribe. The subscriptions are right here. Okay, if you have any questions, you can always call the numbers down below. Thank you for listening and your active participation. I will see you soon. You're welcome, Faith.
Teacher Solomon.
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Yes, please.
Thank you, but
Mr.
you can share that thing again because we were still reading and then it has disappeared. Where the subscription and all that is written.
All right, I'll share that here so that you can look at it. So Arinito, the thing is here.
Mr. Solomon, Charles
Yes,
wanted
please.
to say something. Charles wanted to say something about the subscription stuffs.
Yes, please. Charles, feel free to communicate. I am done with my communication.
Thank you, Teacher Solomon, for this wonderful seminar, and I hope everybody on this call has enjoyed. Thank you, the students, for making it up, and not only stopping at the first process of signing up or registering for this seminar. I wish to take this chance from the online facilitator and on my own behalf as the manager for outreach and engagement in regards to Ultimate Multimedia Consult and Yaaka Digital Network. We want to alert you, those who are not aware, that Yaaka has been offering online learning for students from P1 up to Senior 6 since 2020 in September. So if you've never gotten to know about that, just know that you're missing to hear from great teachers like Teacher Solomon. Thank you so much, Teacher Solomon, for that good engagement. And the students also, thank you for being active, being good students, and who listen to go ahead and do the revision of the notes, the slides that we sent. So today has been our first day for the seminar. In the morning, we had about for upper primary, and then after lunch, we had with you the advanced students. Just be informed that every Friday, especially in this month of September, we are going to be having seminars. So Inform your colleagues, inform your friends, tell a friend, tell a friend. To conclude with, as you can see on the screen, we have various services that we offer. One is being that we have the online classes, which are at 2 subscriptions. Subscription means that the period that you pay for. If you want to study for a year, you pay only 500,000. So your year starts initially when you pay. For example, you pay today, that means we count 12 months from today. So you pay for 1 month, that means we count from today. So that's how the system works. But within this, you'll have teacher and student interaction, engagement. You'll be able to access courses. Some of you who have not yet, please go ahead and check on our Yaaka site. The link is below. You'll see that we have courses of all subjects that you offer actually. And you find some having interactive videos that prompt you to answer questions. So there will be things related to assignments that you do, quizzes. This will be for the period that you paid for. So for some of us who need subjects, you can always go ahead to request for downloads. We have them on this very platform, Yaaka, but still, you can give us always phone calls. You have, I hope, our numbers. And then you can see that primary, secondary, we charge only 10,000 per subject. That means you get a soft copy of the subject covering term 1 up to term 3. Okay. And then that is for primary and then secondary. So in primary, if you want a combination of all the subjects for a class, then it's not 40,000, but it's 30. That means a discount already. The same applies to secondary. Those in upper secondary or A level, that means you get, for example, all the combination subjects, paper 1, 2, 3, and so forth, at only 50,000, not counting each subject at 10. So that's already a discount. You can see that. Lastly is down here we have Access Educare. So Educare through that link you can see. On Educare, it is the right graphic you can see on the right, which says that membership. So you see membership levels. You can start today. Go ahead, open up an account, sign up for 2 days free access. You'll access all the notes, all the subjects from Moreover P1 up to Senior 6. So that means even your siblings might benefit. But if you want to access for a long period of time, for a month, which we call bronze is 20, silver for only 3 months at 50,000, then gold level half a year at 70,000, and platinum, which is a year at 100. So you can see all these are at discount, because initially when you do the math, you'll see that we're offering everything on a discount. The same applies to other services. So we are grateful that you took in time. Thank you, Teacher Solomon, for giving me this chance to take a few minutes. Thank you. I can hand over to you.
You're welcome, Charles. I have nothing else left to say unless the learners have questions for you. They can always ask. Right. If you have no questions about subscription, well done. Thank you for attending. I hope to see you very soon for the next seminar. I also hope to see you once you subscribe on a daily. So please ensure that you subscribe so we can be meeting and talk about all these things and come with questions, and anything you need, we shall provide. This is a self-paced learning. Whatever you want to learn, you will learn, okay? It is not the teacher who determines what you learn. It is you who will be determining what you want to learn about, which is something very cool that Yaaka offers. So please subscribe and join us. Thank you so much for attending. Good job. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
continue. Slide when you go by.
What's up, guys? Bit boy.
Guys, have a good evening.
Good evening.